Have you ever wondered why something as simple as salt is mentioned over and over in ancient texts? Could it be that it holds more than flavor? Maybe a secret, a law, a key to unlocking wealth? Today, you're about to discover how placing salt in one specific sacred place in your house could shift your entire financial atmosphere. Get ready, because this is not superstition, it's spiritual strategy. Do you know why salt has been used for thousands of years, not just in cooking, but in ceremonies and covenants and sacred rituals? Because salt is not just a seasoning. It's a symbol. It represents preservation, purity, and permanence. In ancient times, kings sealed agreements with salt. Why? Because salt doesn't rot. It doesn't decay. It lasts. And anything that lasts, anything eternal, is tied to the divine. Now, you might be thinking, how can a substance so common be connected to something as powerful as wealth or spiritual authority? Because salt, when understood properly, is a prophetic element. It doesn't just flavor food, it flavors environments. It carries the ability to preserve blessings, to purify atmospheres, and to seal covenants that align you with divine provision. Salt is not passive, it's active. It works even when you don't see it. And when you place it in the right place with the right understanding, you activate principles that move beyond the physical and into the spiritual. Here's what most people miss. It's not about the salt itself, it's about what it represents. It's about intention. It's about position. When you place something symbolic in a specific place with knowledge, with faith, and with alignment to higher principles, you don't just place a mineral, you place a proclamation. You declare to the atmosphere of your home, this place is governed by kingdom order, this territory is preserved, this environment is blessed. And that declaration starts attracting provision. Don't underestimate the power of symbols. They're not magic, they're messages. And salt carries a message of covenant, a message of trust, a message of spiritual ownership. When you begin to see salt as more than a kitchen item and start using it as a prophetic act, you step into a realm where things shift, where lack gets replaced with overflow, where confusion gives way to clarity. But now the real question is, where should it be placed? Where is that sacred location in your house that can shift the entire financial flow of your life? Because when you place it there, everything begins to change. Let's go deeper. If you want to unlock something powerful, something supernatural, you must first understand the principle of alignment. Nothing in the universe flows correctly without alignment. The planets are aligned. Seasons shift by alignment. Even blessings, yes, financial increase, open doors, favor, they come when your life, your thoughts, and your actions are aligned with divine order. So when we talk about placing salt in your home, it's not just about a location. It's about aligning your environment with the laws of the kingdom. Because where there is misalignment, there is disorder. And wherever there is disorder, wealth cannot stay. Chaos is the enemy of prosperity. That's why the salt must be placed not randomly, but strategically in a sacred zone, a zone that welcomes divine flow, a zone that honors purpose. Let me ask you, what if the financial block in your life isn't about hard work, but about spiritual disorder? What if the flow of wealth has been stuck? Not because you don't have talent, not because you don't have ideas, but because the environment is out of sync with spiritual law. You see, salt doesn't create wealth, it attracts it when the spiritual alignment is correct. Because what you honor, you attract. And when you honor sacred placement, you invite sacred results. You must choose a place in your home that you set apart, not for clutter, not for gossip, not for chaos, but for consecration. A place that says, this is where I align my home with divine instruction. It may be a corner, a table, a shelf. But when you set it apart, you invite divine partnership. That place becomes a portal, a landing strip for supernatural provision. Salt in that place is no longer a symbol. It becomes a signal to heaven that you're ready for order, for increase, for overflow. And let me tell you this, when you finally align the environment, you don't even have to chase money. It starts to find you. Opportunities start to recognize you. Why? Because the atmosphere has shifted. The frequency has changed. The house has been set in order. But there's something deeper. It's not just about placing the salt in the right place. It's about why that place is sacred in the first place. Let's uncover that secret next. So what makes a place in your house sacred? Is it the size of the room? Is it the design, the paint on the walls? No. A place becomes sacred not because of what's around it, but because of what happens within it. It becomes sacred when it is set apart for a higher purpose. Sacred means separated for divine use. It means this space right here is not ordinary. It is not for entertainment. It is not for arguments. It is not for distraction. It is a space where heaven is welcomed. Every home has rooms, but not every home has a zone that invites the supernatural. And that's the problem. We give space to everything: TV, phones, noise, clutter. But where is the space for divine order? Where is the place where you align your thoughts, speak your intentions, set your agreements, and call forth provision? When you designate that sacred place and you place salt there, not casually but prayerfully, you're doing more than decorating. You're declaring. You're saying, this home is under divine government. This house is not just protected, it's provided for. This family doesn't live by hustle, they live by principle. And once that declaration is made, the atmosphere in your home begins to shift. That sacred place becomes a spiritual command center, becomes a gate of authority. Salt in that zone does more than preserve, it activates. It activates peace, it activates order. And peace is the atmosphere where wealth grows. There can be no increase where there is chaos. The sacred place breaks the chaos. And once that peace comes in, solutions come in, creativity comes in, clarity comes in. You begin to see things that were always there, but you couldn't recognize them in disorder. So ask yourself, do you have a sacred place in your home? Have you identified that spot where you and heaven agree? Because without that place, even good intentions lose power. But with it, everything shifts. But now, here's the next question. Why does salt placed in that sacred zone begin to attract provision almost magnetically? What's the spiritual connection between salt and wealth? Get ready. We're about to expose a mystery. Why does placing salt in that sacred zone cause wealth to respond? It's because salt is not just symbolic, it's spiritual law in substance form. Salt was used in ancient covenants, not as a decoration, but as a seal. When salt was added, it meant the agreement was permanent, unbreakable. And when you understand that, you stop seeing salt as seasoning and start seeing it as a spiritual signature. It represents stability, integrity, and divine connection. You see, wealth does not follow chaos. Wealth follows covenant. That's why some people work hard, labor day and night, yet still struggle. Because it's not just effort that attracts wealth. It's alignment with spiritual laws. When you place salt in a sacred zone, you're not just performing a ritual, you are recognizing a higher agreement. You are saying, I am entering covenant with divine provision. And salt, as a covenant symbol, begins to act like a magnet. It draws what aligns with the agreement. Provision doesn't just show up because you want it. It shows up because you've created a space for it. Salt declares, this house honors the source. This atmosphere is governed by order. This family is covered under a higher law. And where there is honor, there is flow. Where there is agreement, there is multiplication. Salt also purifies. That means when you place it in your sacred zone, you're not just attracting money, you're clearing out blockages, emotional clutter, mental confusion, spiritual pollution, all the things that silently choke the flow of favor. Salt begins to break it down. It purifies the environment so your prayers, your plans, and your progress can move freely. That's why when the salt is placed with understanding, peace enters first, then clarity, then favor, then provision. It doesn't just happen overnight, but it begins the process of supernatural repositioning. Suddenly, deals come through, delays break, resources you forgot about get released, because now the covenant is acknowledged and heaven responds. But now, here's the key. You've placed the salt. You've aligned the space. You've declared the covenant. The next step, you must establish authority over your finances, because without authority, wealth will visit, but it won't stay. Let's uncover how to take dominion next. Now that the salt has been placed, now that the sacred zone is set, what's next? It's time to take authority. Because the truth is, you can't receive what you don't take dominion over. You can't steward what you haven't claimed. Authority is not just power, it's permission. It's permission to occupy, to manage, to multiply. And when it comes to your finances, your home, your atmosphere, you must speak with authority. Salt is powerful, yes. Alignment is crucial. But without authority, the door stays closed. Because heaven responds to voices of dominion. And dominion starts in the mind, but it's released through the mouth. That means when you step into that sacred place in your home, you don't just place the salt and walk away. No, you declare, you command, you set order with your words. You say, every seed I sow is blessed. Every opportunity finds me. Lack has no legal ground here. This house is under divine management. You speak like a ruler, not a beggar. Like a steward, not a struggler. Because authority is not a feeling, it's a posture. You may not have the money in the bank yet, but when your words align with your covenant, your atmosphere starts shifting in your favor. That's why many people place symbols, they burn candles, they say prayers, but nothing changes. Why? Because they haven't taken their rightful position. The universe does not respond to confusion. It responds to confidence, rooted in spiritual law. When you take authority, you step into your original assignment to subdue, to govern, to multiply. And don't miss this. When authority enters, fear exits, doubt exits, scarcity exits. You stop asking, will it happen? And start declaring it is happening. You stop hoping for favor and start commanding alignment. Authority activates movement. It tells stuck doors to open. It tells withheld resources to be released. And it tells your mind to stop shrinking and start expanding. But there's still one more mystery we must explore. You've honored the symbol. You set the zone. You've claimed authority. Now, let's uncover what makes that zone the actual meeting point between heaven's abundance and your earthly need? The answer lies in the power of covenant place. Let's go. Every house has a location that can become a covenant place, a place where heaven and earth meet. Not just a quiet corner, not just a shelf, but a place that becomes a spiritual gate. A gate where declarations are heard, where principles are honored, and where provision is activated. This is not superstition. It's not tradition. This is spiritual technology. A covenant place is where a man or woman makes divine contact through action, through alignment, and through authority. When you place salt in that zone intentionally, it signals a covenant. And covenants aren't casual, they're sacred. That's why this can't be just a routine. You can't turn your sacred zone into a storage shelf. You can't mix the holy with the common. The covenant place must be protected, guarded, honored, because what you treat as common loses its power, but what you treat as sacred multiplies in impact. The moment you recognize that place as your meeting point with divine provision, things begin to shift. That space becomes charged. Prayers feel different there. Ideas flow stronger there. Peace rests deeper there. Why? Because it's no longer just a physical space. It's now a spiritual altar. And altars speak. They echo. They carry energy. They retain memory. The more you return to that place with consistency, the more heaven responds with clarity. You must understand your covenant place isn't magic. It's a mirror. It reflects what you bring to it. If you come with confusion, it reveals it. If you come with faith, it magnifies it. And when you come with obedience, it releases results. This is why so many people don't see change. They place the salt, but they don't protect the place. They speak declarations, but don't live in alignment. The covenant place requires more than a moment. It requires a lifestyle. And when heaven sees that your house contains a sacred gate, provision doesn't visit once. It dwells. It lives there. It rests on your work, your relationships, your decisions. But now, you've built the gate. What causes the flow to actually come through that gate? What makes salt not only symbolic, but active? The secret lies in acts of obedience. Let's go deeper into that mystery next. Here's the truth most people miss. Spiritual principles are only as powerful as your obedience to them. You can know everything. You can hear every teaching. You can place the salt, align the space, speak with authority. But without action that aligns with instruction, nothing flows. Why? Because faith without action is like having a well with no bucket. The water's there, but you never drink it. Obedience is the key that unlocks the gate. It's not just what you do, it's why and how you do it. When salt is placed in your sacred zone, and you speak declarations and you guard that place as holy, obedience says, now live according to what you just declared. It means your decisions start to reflect what your mouth has spoken. It means your habits come into agreement with your prayers. And when obedience enters the room, provision starts moving. Heaven doesn't respond to hype, it responds to honor. And obedience is the highest form of honor. It's when you say, even if I don't feel it, even if I don't see results yet, I will remain faithful to this instruction. That's when things break. That's where doors open. Because obedience activates invisible systems that were waiting for your alignment. You thought you were just placing salt? No, you are building a pathway. You are preparing a funnel for flow. And now obedience turns on the faucet. And hear this. Obedience often looks small. It might be waking up a little earlier just to go to that covenant place and give thanks. It might be writing that business idea that came during prayer. It might be sowing a seed when it feels uncomfortable. But every act of obedience carries supernatural weight. It's not about the size of the action. It's about the spirit behind it. And when obedience becomes a lifestyle, wealth stops being seasonal. It becomes sustainable. It doesn't just visit, it multiplies. Because heaven trusts what honors heaven. But now we must look at one final key, the transition from obedience to overflow. Because many people obey but never learn how to receive. What turns spiritual movement into physical manifestation? Let's close the gap and find out. You can align your space, place the salt, guard the covenant zone, speak with authority, and walk in obedience. But if you don't understand how to receive, you will still live in lack. Why? Because receiving is not automatic. It's intentional. And for many people, the greatest blockage to wealth is not disobedience. It's disbelief. They pray, but deep down, they don't expect. They declare, but they don't prepare. They hear the promise, but don't position themselves to receive it. Receiving starts in the mind. You must first believe you are worthy of abundance, not because you're perfect, but because you are aligned. You must believe that provision is not a reward, it's a result of obedience, of covenant, of honor. And when you truly believe that, your posture changes. You don't walk through life begging, you walk expecting. You don't chase after money, you attract it. You don't wait for opportunities, you prepare for them. Receiving is also spiritual agreement. It's saying, yes, I accept what heaven has already released, because provision has already been sent, but you must be in the right posture to catch it. When you sit in your sacred place, when you've honored the process, now you must open your heart, open your hands, and say, let it be unto me. You must declare, I am the right person in the right place, doing the right thing at the right time. This is where manifestation begins. This is where the invisible becomes visible. This is where that delayed deal finally comes through. That unexpected refund shows up. That business idea suddenly explodes. Not because you're lucky, but because you were ready to receive. So don't just pray. Don't just place. Don't just obey. Receive. Say it out loud. I receive. Say it again. I receive everything that's mine. Already prepared, already released, already waiting. Because when faith aligns with expectation, manifestation has no choice but to appear. Now, let the salt remind you, your house is in order, your hands are clean, your spirit is aligned, and your harvest has already begun. Now stand still and watch it come to you.